our registered student organization, Bullying Prevention Mentors.
And I'm Felicia Green, and I'm the Vice President.
We are going to show you a quick clip today, which encompasses a lot of what we will be discussing, as well as things that are happening in our current day and age with students, with cyberbullying, and with this age of technology. So we're going to show you a quick clip to get us started.
How old are you anyway?
She's not even that
Stop pretending you're a model.
old. She looks plastic.
Are you even real?
Why does your voice sound like that?
You're wearing too much makeup.
What happened to your ear?
Please notice me.
I'm
Please
better.
follow me. My friends are better.
$953,721, $953,721, $953,720. One time, I can remember only having my close family, maybe 2 or 3 friends that didn't know me well. But I can't remember when being popular was the same as being mean, being dark. I can't remember when laughing was for joy and not making fun of the way someone looked or spoke or where they were from. You know, sometimes it feels like it's safer to be alone. At least alone, you'll never have to face falling down in front of others. I was really hoping that bullying was going to go out of style. But cyberbullying has undergone a rebirth. See, now you can torment someone that you've never met. And you might just be one of their 900,000 followers. See, now you can cast your opinion on their hair, their clothes, the way they smile, how they dance, without even knowing how their voice sounds in person. If this cyberspace were a school, I bet that half the people I knew would be sitting in the principal's office. I bet that most of them wouldn't graduate to get their degree in kindness. See, if this place that we all connected on cell phones were a playground, you wouldn't even have picked me to be on your team. I practice every day. Practice being resilient. I practice letting the weight and the insults just fall right off of me. Sometimes, I daydream about cyberbullying and how it's a faint memory. I smile, thinking about the days when Instagram ruled the halls and how there was no one to police us being reckless. But you know what? I forgive you. I forgive you.
There's 3 minutes left of this video, and it's one of the most powerful videos that we've all seen today. I'm hoping that you guys will go home and be able to finish this video. It's Azure Antoinette is her name, and she's a poet, and that's her poem behind this dance video that a liberal arts school put on. We would like to present you today Dr. Mildred Pearson.
Dr. Mildred M. Pearson is the founder of Bridging Voices in Our Community Bullying Prevention Project. It's a nonprofit 501c3 organization. This organization hosts an annual bullying prevention conference each year to bring scholars and practitioners together to discuss research and apply learning in the area of social and emotional learning. Her passion and love for her students comes from a long-term interest in their social and emotional well-being. Her research interests include social cognition, namely self-efficacy. Dr. Mildred Pearson is an associate professor at Eastern Illinois University, where she teaches in the College of Education and Professional Studies. She is the past director of faculty development, where she served for 6 years, laying the foundation for excellence by implementing, teaching, and learning workshops. She has traveled nationally and internationally, promoting excellence in teaching. She is a peer reviewer for programs to evaluate and advance quality of the Higher Learning Commission Accreditation Team, formerly North Central Accreditation.
A victim of bullying herself, she shares her story of how efficaciousness allowed her to overcome pain, while having a strong faith in God, a strong supportive family, and excellent faculty mentors. Please welcome today, Dr. Mildred Pearson.
Let me begin by thanking Abigail and Felicia for that great introduction. I love the video. I actually cried in my home when I watched the video. And I have really had this past year the opportunity to work with these two fine young women who took on the task of leading our new registered student organization, which we expanded it to now teachers and community leaders, because we didn't want it to just be limited to just registered students on our campus. So bullying is not just a student problem. Suicide is not just a student problem. Self-mutilization and all of these topics that we'll talk about, they're not limited to students. And so when I presented this idea to them, they were open and they were flexible enough to have buy-in. And so I want to begin by thanking them for the type of leadership that they provided this past year. I can of myself do nothing has been the motto in our family home. And I've embraced that motto in my career. And I'm going to begin by asking the Bridging Voices in Our Community Bullying Prevention Advisory Board if they'll step inside wherever they are, because I don't want to end the program this year without you seeing the fruits of your labor today, because we'll get busy. And people will come in throughout the day. They may not be here now. We had yesterday almost 250 registered. We put out 300 seats. And they may not be here for the keynote this morning, but they will come in throughout the day, and this place will be very, very busy until 3:30 today. But let me show you the people who sacrifice their time, not without one penny. And I don't want to get emotional because we have too far to go, right? But let me say, they gave week after week over the summer months. This has been a year-long planning event. We began immediately planning for 2015 a couple of months ago. We're already seeking out our next speaker. It is because of this group of people who, it's not about Pearson, it's about team, every bit of team. And I began to seek out members, including principals and people around the community. And when I say all voices are appreciated, we named it Bridging Voices in Our Community, surrounding communities, right? Not just the Charleston community. We're going to hear from Champaign today. We're going to hear from people in Mattoon. Our mayor and his cabinet is here. But it was because of these members who said, you know, Mildred, what about these people? What about these people? What about this? And it is because of their labor of love that I'm going to ask you, take the time now to say thank you to them. Thank you. Every day, every donation, thank you, everybody. We must become the human bridge. And what does that mean? You have a brochure. We've identified it for you. The being bridge is to build. Building life skills and becoming self-aware is imperative. The RN bridge is to respect. Respecting others with dignity by using self-management is critical. Individuality, the I in bridge. Individuality, identity development, and uniqueness are appreciated, and becoming social aware is essential. The D in bridge is develop. Developing positive relationships that are life-sustaining is important. The G in bridge is to grow. Growing responsible decision-making citizens in our communities is key. And the E in bridge encouraging and supporting others around you to become self-efficacious and resilient is our message. That's what we mean when we say become the human bridge. I'm going to ask Mrs. Lanita Eppinger to introduce our speaker. Help me welcome her.
Good morning, colleagues. We're very, very fortunate to have the privilege of being able to have such outstanding presenters and workshop facilitators. I know you, like myself, cannot make an investment of a Friday and have it be for naught. We want to start out by introducing a really exceptional keynote speaker, Dr. Alan L. Bean. Dr. Alan L. Bean is the president of Bully Free Systems, which is located in Murray, Kentucky. He is an internationally recognized expert, speaker, and author on bullying. His 36-year experience in education includes teaching special ed, teaching regular education, as well as higher education. He has served as vice president of a university and also as the director of a school safety center. He and his wife have published the most information on anti-bullying. Dr. Bean is the author of 6 published anti-bullying books and several other resources. One of his books is in 13 languages, so his work has spanned a number of cultures and translations. He and his wife have authored and self-published over 20 anti-bullying books. His systems approach, Bullying Prevention School Program and BUS program, has been used throughout the United States as well as Canada. The BUS program is now available in both English and in Spanish. He has been featured in national publications such as USA Today, USA Weekend, Time for Kids, Newsweek for Kids, School Transportation. He has also assisted the staff of the Oprah Winfrey Show in developing a show around bullying. Dr. Bean has also made numerous television appearances such as Fox News, Headline News, and as well as the Nancy Grace Show. He has served as an expert consultant in numerous criminal cases as well as lawsuits involving bullying. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Alan L. Bean.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that introduction. All that means is I've lived a long time. You know, you do a lot of stuff. You live long enough. I want to thank you for giving me a little bit of your attention today. And I have a lot of information I want to share with you in a very short period of time. And I'm going to try to talk fast, but that's difficult for me. I'm from Western Kentucky. Okay, so I'm trying to, this afternoon at 1 o'clock, I will be covering a sampling of strategies that are in our program. We pride ourselves in the fact that we provide schools with practical, effective strategies. I'm a teacher, and we've worked with schools for years. We've been doing this for 16 years. We got involved in this long before it became a crisis in our country. I've been asked to come here today and talk to you about hope. How to be an instrument of hope. How can we be an instrument of hope to children who are being targeted by bullies, who are victims of bullying? And it's very interesting because, you know, if you think about it, we use that word a lot, don't we? Hope. He gave me hope. And sometimes it seems like we get hopeful right away. It doesn't take a long process. And there are times that it seems like when you're working with someone, it's a long process to help them to be hopeful. Well, today what I'm going to do is share with you the cognitive and the psychological path that kids take who are being bullied. Some of these kids take from hurt to hopelessness. Listen, are you listening? I've been doing this for a long time. I have met so many kids who walk up to me begging for help, who are crying. They want me to be their instrument of hope. We have parents who come to us, who call us, who are begging us to be instruments of hope. They've given up hope that their child's situation is going to get better. And they see hopelessness in their child, who may be in the car right there when they call me, who's talking about suicide. Those children are asking you to be their instrument of hope. Those parents need you to be their instrument of hope. I have studied this psychological path, cognitive path. Psychologists refer to it as the accommodation model. Listen, this path that some of these kids take is almost identical to the path that kids take who have been sexually abused. If you don't believe that, you need a reality check. And you need to check your heart, because that's the truth. Also, I want to talk to you a little bit about the definition of hope. For the last 20 years, there's been a lot of research around hope. Most of it's in the medical field. Nurses, how can nurses give people hope? How can we give people hope who have cancer? How can we give people hope who are addicted to drugs? In our study of this, we have discovered there are many things that relate to helping children who are being bullied. So we're going to look at a definition. I read one research article where they examined 40 definitions. We're going to look at one definition of hope, and we're going to look at the psychology of hope, and then we're going to look at the components. Okay, this process of giving someone hope, what does this process look like? What are the components of that process? And then we're going, if we have time, we're going to talk about a sampling of strategies. But you do have a handout that you'll be able to look at some of these strategies if we run out of time here. I want to give you my passion. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about this. I hate it. I hate it when I see somebody being mistreated. And I want you to hate it. I want you to make this your passion. Everybody needs a passion in life. You need something to feel passionate about, to make it your mission. And I hope you'll select this to be your passion, that you will help students think and feel hopeful. Now, why am I so passionate about this? Well, one, I believe in the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Pretty simple, isn't it? That's the answer to so many problems we see in our homes, in our neighborhoods, communities, in our workplaces, and in our schools. It's the answer. But we people sometimes find that difficult. We believe it, but it's not a conviction. What does that mean? Conviction means you let that belief control your thinking, your attitudes, and your behavior toward people, or it's not worth a dime. I could care less if you just believe it. I want you to make it a conviction, and that's what we try to do in our program. It's a thread that runs throughout our program, helping kids learn how to treat others. Also, our son was bullied. When he was in 7th grade, I'll try to tell the story quickly. He came home and he said, "Dad, there's this boy at school who's smacking me, pushing me, knocking my books out of my hands. Dad, he's been doing this to me for a long time, and I just don't know what to do." Well, I didn't know what to tell my son, so I told my son to ignore this boy. And isn't that the first reaction a lot of parents have? Just ignore them. Well, he went back to school, and I thought things were okay. I didn't hear any more about it, and I had a new job, and I got busy. And then one day the school counselor called me and said, "Alan, you need to come get Curtis. He's an emotional wreck." And I had not seen any sign in him at all that he was becoming an emotional wreck. Isn't it amazing how kids can hide things from you? Well, when I got my son, I brought him home, I set him down, and he was shaking so much and he was crying. And it really concerned me. All of a sudden, I became concerned about his emotional health. And tell you the truth, I could care less about school rules. I could care less about academics at that point. I was worried about his health. So I looked at my son and I said, "I'm not going to allow this to happen to him. I said, Curtis, the next time this boy even touches you, I want you to turn around and just knock him crazy. Now, that's another recommendation parents often give, right? Just stand up for yourself. Well, that's pretty stupid for a lot of reasons. One, I was teaching him violence is the way you deal with violence. Also, I was telling him, you're in this all by yourself, Curtis. You have got to go solve this problem. And that's not right. I was his parent. And the school knew about this problem, I found out. We failed my son because we didn't talk to each other and try to help him, work together and try to help him. I ran this risk of my son getting hurt. Most of the time, the kids who pick on somebody, they're bigger, meaner, and stronger than their victims. Not always. We have small boys who bully big boys, who are loving, kind, sensitive boys. Okay? But many times you're telling your child, stand up against somebody who's bigger, meaner, and stronger. So when dad tells you to go beat up this kid who's bigger, meaner, and stronger, what have you got to do? You've got to level the playing field. You've got to equalize the power. How do you do that? Weapon. One boy took a sharp pencil and he stabbed the bully in the back. One boy took a baseball bat. When the bully walked in, he crushed both kneecaps. One boy caught the bully not looking. He shoved him, hit his head on a concrete bench, and he killed him. So you tell your kids, stand up for yourself. You run that risk. I ran a risk with this boy hurting my son. He was big, mean, and strong. He was on the football team, and my son wasn't. He was small and weak for his age because he'd been sick a lot all his life. Well, my son went back to school, and this boy smacks him behind the head. Curtis pushed the boy. By the way, I told my son, you got to win this fight. You can't lose this fight. Okay? The boy came running back at my son. My son grabbed him into a headlock somehow, out of sheer determination, and started pounding his head. And I was told by the principal that the teacher stood and watched for a few minutes and said it was long overdue. Which meant what? They knew that my son was being bullied. I didn't hear anything about it from them. Well, that was several years ago, and the principal scolded both of them and sent them on their way. But now I know there's another reason you don't want to tell kids to do that. Guess what happened? That bully was on the football team. He turned other boys against my son who were on the football team. Other students against my son. Things got worse for him. We didn't know it, but some friends told us that our son was sitting in the cafeteria all by himself for weeks during lunch. When I heard about that, it hurt. I got angry. I wanted to say, hello, teachers! Hello, principal, assistant principal, cafeteria workers, other students, maintenance personnel. Did anybody care that my son was sitting there all by himself for weeks? How could that happen? What'd you do? Just look at my son and ask, I wonder what's up with Curtis. Why doesn't he go sit with someone? Well, that made me so angry, and I didn't have any hope that school was going to deal with it, right or wrong. I took my son out of that school in the middle of 7th grade. I transferred him to another school in a different school system. He found a sense of belonging and acceptance there. He liked motorcycles, hunting, fishing, hiking. He found other students in that county school who liked those kind of things as well. But he was in high school. He was coming home one night in the car. He was in the front seat of the car, had his seatbelt on, 2 boys in the back seat. The boy driving ran off the road a little bit on a curve, and he panicked, and he jerked the car back onto the road. The car went into a spin. The car went off the road in reverse, hit a bank, cut down a stop sign, started flipping backwards. The car crushed in on the roof of the car, crushed in on my son's head. The windows exploded, cut up my son's face. My son had to hold on to the car somehow, so he grabbed the roof of the car, and the car flipped onto his hand, came back up on the asphalt, slid on its roof and its side with my son's elbow dragging down the highway up from here to that wall. I had to fly my son to a hospital. My wife and I had to drive there 4 hours. by car to get there. We got there, they had to get the doctor's permission to amputate 2 of his fingers, a third of his hand. The back of his hand was completely missing. You can see bone. Top half of his middle finger was missing. Index and thumb was damaged. They took the bottom half of one finger they cut off, sewed it on top of the middle finger, and cut pins and wires in and sewed it up. Took a big slab of flesh and skin off of his leg, sewed it onto the back of his hand. Tough time for a 15-year-old. 18 months later, he went back to school. There were students there who did what they were supposed to do. They used their words to build him up, to encourage him, to make him feel good about himself, to make him feel healthy. But then there was an unbelievable number of students who let other students convince them to mistreat him. They call him Pizza Hand. They call him the Penguin. That's when the Batman movie came out, and the Penguin character's hand kind of looks like that. His girlfriend didn't want him anymore because this world had taught her. There's pretty, there's ugly, there's normal, there's abnormal. You don't want to be identified with, you don't want to be associated with, you don't want to be friends with abnormal, ugly-looking people. You only want to be identified with, associated, friends with the pretty, popular people. And that's what kids in this world are teaching your child right now. Don't let them do that. That will make your child unhappy, and their unhappiness will make people around them unhappy. Well, our son started getting depressed and anxiety problems into his young adult years, and he kept all his feelings on the inside because he didn't want us to worry about him. He tried college a few times, just didn't have the energy, he couldn't get the medications right. And he really dealt with the wreck pretty good. He would shake hands with you even though you'd grab 2 fingers. He kind of got a kick out watching people's expressions. Because they couldn't really see how many fingers he had. See, like this, you really can't tell when I hold my hands down beside my body. But this, making the bullying on top of that was just too much. And one day he called me to work and said, "Dad, I met some new friends who would give me some attention." He's 23 years old, he tells me this. He said, "Dad, they do things I don't agree with." And that worried me a lot. Worried me a lot. But I didn't ask Curtis what that was because he was kind of an intense little guy. And every time you asked him questions out of love and concern, I think he thought I was questioning his ability to cope with his depression. But I was worried so much about him. You know how it is when you're a parent, you're worried about your kids, you're not worried that I am, are you? But I was at work and I couldn't work anymore. About that afternoon, I walked out of the building, worried about him. I was looking down at the sidewalk, thinking about what he said to me, and I looked up and there he was. He came by in his car and he waved at me and smiled at me. Gave me this great big beautiful smile. And that was the last time I saw him alive. He's dead. When I talk to kids, when I do the assembly program, I tell his story and I tell them, when people tell you that drugs will not hurt you, they are lying to you. All they want to do is use you, abuse you, and benefit from you. They don't care about you. The drugs killed my son, but you know what? He was already dead somewhat on the inside of how people treated him. Aren't we told that our tongue is like fire and can destroy life? It can set a whole forest on fire? And that's what happened to my son. He's the reason for our passion. So I wrote my first book in 1999. We were the first people to use the terminology bully-free in our country. And that just happened to be when Columbine happened. And it came out that those boys were bullied. So now we have a very comprehensive program, and I'll be talking about the strategies that we have in that program this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Well, I want you to understand what we understand. Bullying is mistreatment, and I know we don't just have students mistreating students. We have teachers who are mistreating students. I'm involved now as an expert in 2 lawsuits It's this time they're going after the teachers. I've been involved in 8 lawsuits, represented the school system once. But we know we have teachers who are bullying kids, but we also have kids who bully our adults in our schools, many schools I've been in, and we have adults in our schools who bully other adults in the school. But we're talking mostly about bullying peers today. I want you to understand that this is victimization. When you are mistreated 30 times a day, maybe every day, maybe for a month, maybe for a year, maybe for 5 years, like I've seen in some of the lawsuits, you begin to feel like a victim, that you are being victimized. Then there are those people who say, Evan, when you speak to people, you didn't tell them what this really is. This is abuse. This is nothing short of abuse. And also, sometimes I'm amazed that there are people out there who really believe there are some people it's okay to mistreat them. They were just asking for it. Oh, are you telling me that it's okay to break school rules, to violate the behavior code book, to break laws, to mistreat some people? See in court. But we actually think, some people think it's okay to mistreat some people. And I meet those people. So it's dehumanization. I've had students tell me, Dr. Beaton, they make me feel like I'm it. That I'm not even human. Listen, we're all different. But we have one thing in common. What's that? Feelings. And we need to care about those feelings that people have. And I think we have a cruelty crisis in our country right now. I really do. It's cruel. It's just being proven. So it weakens the mind, it weakens the heart, it weakens the body, it weakens the spirit, it weakens the soul, and it creates hopelessness in a lot of kids. And I want you to understand, I really want you to believe that victimization and abuse and dehumanization are much better terms than bullying, because they are so much more descriptive of what it does to an individual. Here's a video that a student created because he wanted you to understand how this makes him feel hopeless.
Do you ever feel like breaking down? Do you ever feel out of place? Like somehow you just don't belong and no one understands you? Do you ever want to run away? Do you lock yourself in your room? With the radio on turned up so loud that no one hears you screaming? No, you don't know what it's like when nothing feels alright. You don't know what it's like to be like me. To be hurt, to feel lost, to be left out in the dark, to be kicked when you're down, to be like you've been pushed around, to be on the edge of breaking down, but no one there to save you. No, you don't know what it's like. Welcome to my life. Do you want to be somebody else? Are you sick of feeling so left out? Are you desperate
quickly take a look at the path from hurt to hopelessness. This is a 2-hour presentation that I made, just this, okay? I'm just going to hit it very quickly with you and move on. The path basically starts with somebody being bullied or being victimized or abused or dehumanized or treated cruelly. And sometimes this becomes very confusing to the kids, especially when their best friend is turning on them, but you are more likely to see that among girls than you are boys. And it's very unpredictable. You don't know when she's going to be nice to you or not going to be nice to you. So it's a very uncomfortable feeling to have. But at that point, kids are hoping this is not going to continue for me. They have hope it's going to be over with soon. It's going to be short term. And then sometimes there's fear when it continues, and every day becomes full of fear. And Michelle Simmons says that it's like every day is a social minefield. You don't know what's going to be in your path that's going to blow up and hurt you. So you have anticipatory anxiety. You worry about what might happen to you, what might happen to you, while you're thinking about what has happened to you. And you almost want to deny it, and there becomes a secrecy. You don't want people to know about it because it's awfully embarrassing that that you can't stand up for yourself like your parents tell you to, and you don't have friends like other kids have, and so you keep it a secret. One girl said, "I cry myself asleep every night, and my parents don't know it." She said, "Dr. Dean, there's something cold, hard, and dark in my chest," and she said, "That's my heart." But they keep it a secret. Because they're even hoping then that this is going to be over with soon. And then there's revisiting and assessment of what's happening to them. They lay in bed at night and they evaluate what's happening to them. And one boy I represented in a criminal case, he struck the bully in the head finally after 2 years. He struck in the head with a baseball bat. He said, "Dr. Dean, I'd lay in bed at night and I'd think about all the things he did to me and said to me." He said, "Every time I thought about those things, it was like I was reliving all the hurt and the pain and humiliation over and over in my mind, and I couldn't even go to sleep at night. And when I did go to sleep, I'd wake up in a cold sweat, worried about going back to school. So I decided to wake up that morning and go to school and to stop him." So he walked into his school with a baseball bat, hit the bully in the head twice with a baseball bat. I was on the witness stand being questioned by the prosecuting attorney for an hour and a half, talking about this path that he took. The jury found him not guilty for hitting that boy in the head with a baseball bat. That's not right. There should be consequences. But they had empathy. They understood why he might go there. Are you listening to me? He did an evil thing. But this is a boy that I worked with for 2 months that you would be proud to call your son. A good boy who was pushed too hard, too far. Okay? Yes, he did an evil thing, but he was not an evil person. Like we sometimes paint these kids to be. So they evaluate, they reassess, they can't sleep at night, they get fatigued, can't eat, lose weight, might develop an eating disorder, develop school phobia. I've met kids who have school phobia because of this. And then there's entrapment. They feel trapped. One student said, "Dr. Dean, it's like being inside a box, and that box just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller on you." And then there's cognitive disorganization. High stress level affects learning. This has a tremendous impact on learning, yet I have schools who will not let me come in and talk to the kids and the parents and the teachers because they got to stay focused on learning. There's tons of research that shows how this impacts. We have, with our program, increased in grade test scores because I can't think clearly. High stress level even makes me forget some things I've learned. No, I'm not listening very well, teacher. I'm thinking about what just happened to me and some of those people in here. One of them is sitting beside me now, and all I can think about is what's going to happen to me after class. I'm not listening. And I'm not going to raise my hand, teacher, and ask questions because I'm afraid I'll be embarrassed with the wrong answer. And they'll tease me about it. But cognitive disorganization, they can't make good decisions. can't think clearly. Dissociates and denies fear. Dissociates, psychologists say, is they get to the point where they try to, it hurts so much that they try to separate the hurt them from the okay them. So there's a lot of denial going on. And this denial and repression of things is not healthy. And then they engage in avoidance and detachment. Avoidance is the most common strategy used by victims of bullying. 160,000 kids a day stayed home because of this. 8%, I think 7% of 8th graders stay home 1 day a month. That doesn't help learning, does it? When they're not there because they're being bullied. And then we have, at some point, sometimes this turns into something very traumatic for them. Victimization to trauma, toxic shame, low self-esteem. Because of trust crisis. They don't trust themselves to cope with it. They don't trust the adults around them to help them. Maybe they've seen adults told and nothing was done. Maybe they told an adult minimized it or blamed them for it. Some kids get to the point where they don't trust life to be good to them anymore. They become irritable, angry, hostile. All of a sudden they're showing you disrespect. And they become a behavior problem. Sometimes they get punished for that, and they should. But there's no investigation done to discover why this child went there. They haven't been a behavior problem in the past. And there's nothing done sometimes to do anything about the bullying. Repression of emotions, increased hopelessness, anxiety attacks, depression, post-traumatic stress, hate, rage. Then they have to make a choice. They get to a point, I've got to make a choice here. Sometimes they cut themselves. I've met a lot of kids who cut themselves. Sometimes they turn to drugs. I just need 5 minutes not to think about this. 5 minutes of life. I joined a drug group, alcohol group, just drink alcohol, escape it. I joined a group of guys who use drugs just to find a place to belong and to be accepted. I joined a cult. I joined a hate group. Why is that? This need to belong, this need to be accepted in our young people is almost a biological drive. It must happen. That need to have my peers accept me has to happen. It has to be met. It doesn't matter how much my parents love me. It doesn't matter how much my grandparents love me. I've got to have this peer acceptance, and I'm willing to do anything. I'm willing to do things that are wrong just to find acceptance. I'll be more than glad to belong to the hate group and hand out hate literature in order to feel valued and appreciated. And these groups, cults, hate groups, they go looking for people who need acceptance and who need a place to belong. That's why in our program we show schools how to create more places for kids to belong, to feel connected to that school. And then some kids, retaliate. 75% of the school shootings we've had in our country were boys who were been bullied. Or I can report it. Try to get help. Try to find somebody who will be my instrument of support. And then there's suicide. I personally have met 19 kids who tried to kill themselves. And they tell me because of this. One girl came up to me, showed me the bandage on her arm. She had tried 3 times to kill herself. She had a bandage on her arm. She pulled her sleeve up. She looked around in the auditorium at her peers, and she looked at me and she said, I don't want them to know how much they hurt me. Oh, Dr. Bean, yeah, I report, this kid told me he's trying to commit suicide. Oh, because of bullying. Yeah, Dr. Bean, his family's a mess. He's got a lot of issues. Oh, well, just forget the bullying then. Maybe, if he wasn't being bullied, maybe his home life is bad, but maybe if he wasn't being bullied on top of that, he wouldn't try to commit suicide. Maybe. Here are 33 kids who did commit suicide because of bullying.
A little girl who never smiles, 'cause I've got braces on my teeth. And I know how it feels to cry myself to sleep. I'm that kid on every playground who's always chosen last. A single teenage mother trying to overcome my past. You don't have to be my friend. Is it too much to ask? Don't laugh at me. Don't call me names. Don't get your pleasure from my pain. In God's eyes, we're all the same. Someday we'll all have perfect wings. Don't laugh at me. I'm the triple on the corner. You pass me on the street. I wouldn't be out here begging if I had enough to eat. And don't think I don't notice that I rise never meet. I lost my wife and a little boy. Someone crossed that yellow line. The day we laid them in the ground is the day I lost my mind. Right now I'm down to gold. This little cardboard sign. So don't laugh at me. Don't call me names. Don't get your pleasure from my pain. In God's eyes, we're all the same. Someday we'll all have perfect wings. Don't laugh at me. I'm fast, I'm thin, I'm short, I'm tall, I'm deaf, I'm blind. Hey, aren't we all? Don't laugh at me. Don't call me names. Don't get your pleasure from my pain. In God's eyes, we're all the same. Someday we'll all have perfect wings. Don't laugh at me.
"33 kids who no longer trusted themselves to be able to cope with it anymore. 33 kids who no longer trusted the adults around them to help them. They should have. There were people who loved them. There were people who were willing to be instruments of hope. 33 kids who no longer trusted life, school bus life, to be good to them anymore. Very quickly, I want to talk about hope. Here's a definition: a pragmatic, goal-oriented attitude, a stance a person assumes in the face of difficulty. It combines a goal-oriented or goal-directed determination with the ability to generate means of reaching that goal. C.R. Snyder is probably considered the father of hope. I encourage you to look up some of his research on the internet. What are the components? When I look at all these definitions and I look at all the research about hope, here are some components that you will find in the hope process. First of all, there's a desired future. That doesn't have to be very far away. That could be tomorrow. This is what needs to happen for me tomorrow for me to feel hopeful. It could be that afternoon. It could be tomorrow. It could be next week, next month, next year. Cognitive activity of some kind. They call it pathway. In other words, I reflect on my past experiences and I think about what kind of future I need to have. I need to feel safe here, here, and here. You establish a goal. What's the goal? What's the aim? Then there's identification of strategies. How am I going to get there? How am I going to get there? How am I going to get this goal? How am I going to have this goal met? And then assessing the likelihood of success. Also, there's an affective component, or emotions. That's often referred to by psychologists as agency. Having a positive, uplifting feelings of when I anticipate what this future is going to look like. Desiring and believing and being optimistic. But hope is much, much, much more than just being optimistic. It's having positive expectations, trusting, and having confidence that things are going to get better for me. Feeling motivated to apply those strategies. I have some motivation to do what you're asking me to do, and motivation to cooperate in this. Then there's environmental factors. External help is extreme. This is foundational. On the handout that you're going to be given, this is foundational, and I talk a lot about your relationship, your engaging, caring, interpersonal relationship with this individual. The responses of others and strategies and resources that are available to us to make this stop for me. But your relationship, that is the foundation of the whole process. And I know some sessions are here about relationships, and it's very, very important. And then personal characteristics, patience, resilience, boldness, courage, and energy. But you need to understand that not everybody are equal in terms of resilience. Did you know that we now know there's something genetic in people who can deal with stress well? So don't expect everybody to be able to deal with this bullying behavior or the stress. Some people are just wired to deal with it better than others. Are you an instrument of hope? It's essential that we all be instruments of hope. When I looked at all the research on hope, I saw instill hope. How do you instill hope? How do you inspire hope? And the more I thought about that, I said, I don't think that's great terminology. I may be wrong, but I think we all have hope in us. I think we're all born with some degree of hope already in us. And sometimes we need to awaken that hope. Awaken that hope in somebody. You need to understand that it's essential that we have people in our schools who can give these kids hope. They do what they do sometimes. Suicide, cutting, retaliation, shooting up your school because they've reached hopelessness. It's essential that we know how to give people hope. It has got to become a part of our protective strategy. It has got to become a part of our risk assessment and risk management efforts in our schools. We must be equipped to awaken hope. This is not just the job of the counselors or the school psychologists. This is all of our job as educators. We may be that person that is supposed to instill hope in that person. Can you be a person who awakens hope? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You have the power. You have the ability. And there are things now you can be taught that will facilitate that effort. Every morning I go into this coffee shop and get a cup of coffee. Cappuccinos begin to show. And one morning I was in there and I heard this. You're so stupid! How could you be so stupid? Don't you see how stupid you are? And I turned and looked, and this guy seemed to be talking to his wife or his girlfriend, and he just kept on and on. He wouldn't shut up, and I went up to pay for my coffee, and he was still screaming at her. And back to the store, and I looked at the cashier, and she acted like, I can't believe this is happening. I couldn't even get her eye contact. She just couldn't wait till these two people left the store. There was a gentleman standing there beside me. He was the same way. I couldn't get eye contact with him, and this guy was just screaming and screaming and screaming at this girl. And finally, he walks up in the line with this girl, and he's still screaming at her, and I thought to myself, this isn't right. And I turned and I looked at him. I couldn't get his attention. because he was screaming at her. And I thought to myself, this isn't right. I need to do something about this. Then I thought, he could beat me up. You know? I mean, he was a flat belly, you know, you call him, his six-pack, and I had 32 ounces. You know? And I knew I couldn't outrun him. He was young, you know? So I taught myself out of helping her. I put my hand on the door and I started to leave, and I heard this voice in my head. You hypocrite. You tell kids all the time that they have power. They're like snowflakes, and they stick together and stand up against this. They can stop it. And here you are, getting ready to walk out on this lady who's being abused. Well, I can't explain it to you, but all of a sudden I was overwhelmed with courage. And I know I looked like Barney Fife. And I was so pumped up, I didn't know what he was going to do to me. And I walked over to him, and I said, hey! Not that loud. Got his attention. And I said, it may not be in my business, but she does not deserve, does not need your verbal abuse. And I waited for a response. And he just looked at the floor and he backed up. And then I looked at her face. You know what I saw? Gratitude. Her face glowed. Because see, that was a moment of victory. I was an instrument of hope for her in that moment. I left the store because I was worried about what he might do to her. But they were laughing and talking when they left the store. And I got mad at myself because while I had him down, I should have given him my 2-hour bully-free speech. Okay? Well, my granddaughter in 2nd grade heard that story. She went to school. She came out of the house. She calls me Daw, D-A-W. Okay? And the theological dictionary means holy majestic. Anyway, she calls me Daw. She said, Doc, I was playing on the monkey bars today with this little girl, and she has a hard time because she's little, playing on the monkey bars. And Doc, these 3 girls came over to her, and they started making fun of her. My little 2nd grade granddaughter, she said, Doc, I said to myself, this isn't right. I need to do something about this. She's mimicking me. She said, I turned and I looked at those 3 girls, and I said, leave her alone. And they just walked off. Now, she's a head taller than everybody else, so that helps. You know, have a little dominance over them. But the 2nd grader can do that? If a 2nd grader can be an instrument of hope, can't you? Can't an 8th grader? 5th grader? You bet. I dare you, I challenge you to be an instrument of hope. I dare you, I challenge you. Don't just believe in the golden rule, make it a conviction. They control your attitudes, your thoughts, and your behavior because kids are watching you. They're watching you. Try to decide, do I want to ask them to be my instrument of hope? You've been a great audience. Thank you very much.